When investigators found the remains of missing teenager Celeste Rivas, they used a small tattoo on her finger to identify her. 3 letters that simply read SHH, but here's what made this case absolutely explosive. The Tesla where she was discovered belonged to rising singer David, better known as D4V Lead, and he had the exact same tattoo.
Discovery in Los Angeles has led to a police investigation on the West Coast. Authorities say they were called to an impound lot in Hollywood after someone noticed a foul odor coming from a car. Once inside, they discovered a wrapped in plastic. The car, which was a Tesla that belonged to a singer and Queens native who goes by the name David, spelled with A4 period.
Now listen, I know what you're thinking right now. How does a 20-year-old music star end up connected to the disappearance of a 13-year-old girl? And why isn't he sitting in handcuffs somewhere? Trust me, we're about to break all of this down together, because this story has more twists than you can imagine. Welcome back to Deadly Affairs. I'm here to walk through this case with you because there's so much information floating around, and we need to separate the facts from all the speculation. This is about Celeste Rivas, a young girl who went missing over a year ago, and David Anthony Burke, the artist behind some of your favorite songs. Before we get into what happened, let me give you the background on both of these people, because understanding who they are is crucial to making sense of this whole situation. Let's start with David. Born March 28, 2005 in Houston, Texas. Now pay attention to this part because his story is actually pretty remarkable. This wasn't some kid who grew up with music industry connections. David started as a gamer trying to make it big on YouTube.
So basically, I played Fortnite from 2017 to 2021. I became a YouTuber. I was playing Call of Duty, Fortnite, all these different type of games to try to become like the biggest next thing, streamer, Kaisen at everything.
He was creating Fortnite content, making montages just like thousands of other kids, trying to get noticed online.
Here's where it gets interesting though. David was using mainstream trending music in his videos to get more eyes on his content because at that time nobody knew who he was.
The songs have an algorithm to them. So let's say 2 people use, I don't know, Halo, and then 3 people use them, 4 people use them. That song, if you hear it in enough videos, your video will be the one that goes up. I don't know how it works, but on YouTube, that's how it works for Fortnite.
So you literally, nothing changed in what you were doing. All you did was put one song in.
Put a song in the video.
He figured out that YouTube's algorithm worked in a specific way with gaming videos. The more people who used the same song, the more likely your video was to get pushed up in the recommendations. But then David's worst nightmare happened. Almost every video he had ever made got hit with copyright strikes overnight for using that music. I can only imagine how devastating that must have been for someone putting their heart into building a following. According to David himself, he called his mom crying and she told him if he wanted to fix his problem, he should just make his own music. So that's exactly what he did. David started recording into his phone using free music editing software and posted his first song to SoundCloud. Phone recording setup, that first song was called You and I, and now listen to this. It has over 94 million streams.
And I made the song called You and I, which now has, 94 million streams. My second song I ever made. Put it in the montage, and I tagged it on Twitter. First Fortnite player to use his own song in a video. That was the title. And bro, everyone was using the song after that day. Like the Fortnite streamers that I was watching and looked up to were using my song. Everybody was using my song, bro. It's crazy because it was royalty free. Because nobody's getting copyright strikes.
Can we talk about this for a second? The strategy was genius because everybody started using his song after that. Fortnite streamers he used to look up to were now using his music in their videos. And the best part, it was royalty free, so nobody was getting copyright strikes. David then started making trending sounds on TikTok by recording covers of popular songs and pitching the audio way up to give it that classic Alvin and the Chipmunks sound. He gained 500,000 followers from that technique alone.
I got 500,000 followers off that, bro. But then literally 2 TikToks later was the romantic homicide one, which has like 16 million views.
Wait, what?
Everybody, my mom was commenting on this one, bro.
Wait, so you made this one as Alvin still?
Dude, yeah. Still, same thing. Everything is crazy.
But it was his cover that became Romantic Homicide that really changed everything. That single TikTok got 16 million views. Here's what's fascinating about his rise. David credits making those covers as the place where he developed his signature sound. So the reason he has the vocal style that made him famous was literally because he was pretending to be a chipmunk on TikTok. By 2022, David exploded onto the music scene with Romantic Homicide as his breakout hit. The song debuted at number 77 on the Billboard Hot 100. We're talking about a kid who went from completely unknown to getting billions of views and streams across the internet in a matter of months. His debut album Withered was released earlier this year, sold 30,000 units and reached number 13 on the Billboard 200. David was even opening for major artists like SZA and eventually headlining his own tours. This was a young man who appeared to be on the verge of mainstream success. Now let me tell you about Celeste Rivas. She was just 13 years old when she disappeared on April 5, 2024. Celeste lived in Southern California, and according to her family, this wasn't the first time she had run away from home. But this time was different. This time she never came back.
Celeste's mother told investigators that she knew her daughter had a boyfriend named David, but she wasn't sure about the specific details of who this David was or what their relationship looked like.
Romantic relationship. So we talked to the mom last week, and the mom was terrified. She thought this might be her daughter because one of the identifying things one of the marks they were trying to use to identify this girl was that she had a tattoo on the inside of her right index finger that said SHHH, and this mom knew that her daughter had that tattoo, and she was, again, very worried that this was her daughter, and in fact it was. David has that same tattoo. Mom said that she wasn't sure about David the singer, but that her daughter had a boyfriend named David. So a lot of things here for police to kind of wade through, but again, it's just a shocking and a strange story.
Where was the parental supervision? How does a 13-year-old end up in a situation like this? These are valid questions that a lot of families watching this are probably asking themselves. What's been reported is that David and Celeste allegedly met through online gaming communities, possibly through Discord servers that David had created for his fans. There are reports of screenshots showing conversations between them, but we have to be careful about what's been verified versus what's circulating on social media. According to some reports, David's Discord server had become a place where he was giving certain female fans more attention than others. Some male fans reportedly complained that David only seemed to interact with girls from the server, and specifically girls who were 15 to 16 years old. Now hold up, did you catch that age range? Because that's important when we start looking at the timeline of when David and Celeste allegedly first started talking. Some reports suggest they began communicating in 2022 when Celeste would have been around 12 years old and David was 17. I know what you're thinking right now. Even if we put aside everything else that happened, this age gap is problematic. A 17-year-old having any kind of romantic relationship with a 12-year-old is concerning, regardless of how this story ends.
The concerning part is that, allegedly, this wasn't something that was completely hidden. Reports suggest that people in David's fan community knew about his relationship with Celeste. There are claims that Discord server members were aware she was underage, aware she had gone missing, and yet no one reported this to authorities. Let me break down what we know about the timeline. Celeste goes missing on April 5, 2024. During this entire time, David is actively touring, releasing music, and building his career. There's no public indication that he's concerned about a missing person, no social media posts asking for help finding her, no statements to police about when he last saw her. This is where the behavioral analysis gets really interesting. If David had the kind of relationship with Celeste that's been alleged, wouldn't you expect some kind of reaction to her disappearance? Some attempt to help locate her, some communication with her family. Fast forward to September 8, 2025. A worker at a Hollywood impound lot notices something that would change everything. There's a Tesla that's been sitting there and it's giving off a terrible smell. The car had been towed from the Hollywood Hills area after someone reported it abandoned during the summer months. Now here's what you need to understand about this discovery. The car wasn't reported stolen. David never called police to say his Tesla was missing. For months this vehicle was just sitting there, and apparently nobody thought to check on it or report it missing. Think about that for a second. We're talking about a Tesla, which can cost anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. Who doesn't report a car like that missing? The impound lot workers called police because of the smell, and what they found inside would connect this missing person case to one of the fastest rising stars in music. The remains found in the vehicle belonged to Celeste Rivas.
Now here's where the investigation really starts to heat up. Law enforcement sources say the LAPD spent hours searching David's Hollywood Hills residence.
Tonight, law enforcement sources say the LAPD spent hours searching the Hollywood Hills home of star singer David after they say the remains of a missing teen girl were found inside the performer's Tesla. Detectives removing multiple items from the home overnight, including a computer. Police say the Tesla had been abandoned not far from there.
It's a little weird to see a car that I haven't seen here for a long time. Had a big dent on it, had a Texas plate on it. So all a little odd.
On Wednesday, the LA medical examiner announced the remains in the Tesla's front trunk belonged to Celeste Rivas. This image confirmed as her by police. She went missing from this Southern California neighborhood more than a year ago when she was just 13. The medical examiner is now trying to determine her cause and time of death, saying Rivas had a tattoo on her right index finger reading "shh." And while that tattoo is not uncommon, photos appear to show David with a similar tattoo on his finger. The singer's not been charged with any crime and has not made any comments so far. Tonight, David's scheduled performance at the Grammy Museum next week has been removed from the site. It comes hours after a Seattle concert was also abruptly canceled.
Now let's talk about something that's been absolutely fascinating to people following this case. The music connections. David's breakthrough hit is called Romantic Homicide, and it has lyrics that people are now analyzing with completely different eyes. The song includes the lines "In the back of my mind you passed," and "In the back of my mind I got you and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true." When you know that remains were found in the back area of his Tesla, these lyrics hit different. But here's what's even more interesting. The music video for Romantic Homicide shows David with an actress who, according to many viewers, has a strong resemblance to Celeste. In the video, there are scenes of someone being placed in the trunk of a car. The video was uploaded to YouTube on September 7th, which would have been Celeste's 15th birthday. Now, I want to be clear here. Artists create fictional content all the time. Music videos often tell stories that aren't literal. But when you consider the timing and the circumstances, you can understand why people are analyzing every frame of this video. There are also reports of another song allegedly recorded in December 2023 where David supposedly references someone named Celeste multiple times. The alleged lyrics include "Oh Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest." Remember, Celeste went missing in April 2024, so if this song exists and was recorded in December 2023, that timeline is significant. Let me address something that keeps coming up in the comments because I see people asking about Tesla technology. These cars are basically computers on wheels. They have multiple cameras recording constantly, GPS tracking that logs every trip, and detailed data about when the car is accessed and by whom. If Celeste remains were found in David's Tesla, law enforcement likely has access to months of data showing where that car went when it was accessed, and potentially video footage of who was using it. This isn't like the old days where you could just claim your car was stolen and that's the end of it. Now let me address the question that everyone keeps asking, because so many people who have reached out to me to speak on this case have also asked the same question. Why hasn't David been arrested yet? Why isn't he officially named as a suspect or person of interest? This is where understanding how investigations work becomes really important. Law enforcement experts have explained that there's actually strategy behind not officially naming someone as a suspect too early in an investigation. When someone believes they're not being considered as a suspect, they're more likely to keep talking to investigators. They're more likely to be cooperative and potentially say something that helps build a case. The moment you officially name someone as a suspect, their lawyer is going to tell them to stop talking to police. So if investigators believe they're building toward charges, they might intentionally avoid that official designation until they've gathered all the evidence they need. Think about it from a strategic standpoint. David has been cooperating with the investigation. He's been answering questions, providing information, allowing searches of his property. The minute he gets labeled as an official suspect, that cooperation likely ends. There's also the reality of what prosecutors need to bring charges in a case like this. The medical examiner hasn't even been able to determine an official cause of what happened to Celeste yet. Without that crucial piece of information, it becomes much harder to know what charges might be appropriate. California prosecutors don't want to bring charges they can't prove. They're going to take their time to build the strongest possible case before making any moves. That's why we're seeing this methodical evidence collection, the computer seizures, the detailed analysis of timelines and digital communications, but I understand why people are frustrated. When you see all these connections, all these coincidences, all these behavioral patterns, it feels like there should be immediate action. The court of public opinion has already made up its mind in many ways, but the legal system moves at a different pace.
What's particularly troubling is the alleged community knowledge about David's relationship with Celeste. If reports are accurate that multiple people knew about their relationship, knew her age, and knew when she went missing, that represents a massive failure of community responsibility. Adults have an obligation to protect minors, especially when they become aware of inappropriate relationships. The idea that people allegedly knew a young girl was missing and didn't report it to authorities is something that should concern all of us. This case has also highlighted the vulnerability of young people who may be dealing with family issues at home. Celeste had reportedly ran away from home multiple times before her final disappearance. That suggests there may have been underlying problems that made her more susceptible to manipulation by someone promising her a different kind of life. The music industry is still processing how to handle this situation. David's music continues to exist on streaming platforms, but the context around it has completely changed. Songs that were once seen as artistic expression are now being analyzed as potential confessions. This raises complex questions about separating art from the artist, about how the industry should respond to allegations before legal conclusions are reached, and about the responsibility that platforms have when concerns are raised about content creators. For David's family, this has to be an unimaginable situation. Watching someone you love go from rising star to being connected to a missing person case in such a public way. If David is innocent of wrongdoing, then his life and career have been destroyed by circumstances beyond his control. But for Celeste's family, the pain is immeasurable. They spent months not knowing where their daughter was, holding on to hope that she might still be alive somewhere. Learning that she had passed away and learning it in such a public, traumatic way is something no parent should ever have to experience. The impact on Celeste's community in Lake Elsinore has been profound. This is a close-knit area where everyone knows everyone, and having one of their young people become the center of a national news story has been devastating for local families. Schools in the area have had to address student concerns and provide counseling resources. Other parents are having to figure out how to explain this situation to their children, while also using it as an opportunity to discuss safety and the importance of reporting concerning behavior. Let me talk about something that's been weighing on me throughout this entire case. Celeste was just a child. She was 13 when she disappeared, 15 when she was found. Whatever happened to her, whatever choices she made or didn't make, she was still a minor who deserved protection and safety.
The challenge for everyone following this case is distinguishing between what's been verified by law enforcement and what's been reported or alleged by various sources. Some of the most compelling details about Discord conversations, specific song lyrics, and community knowledge haven't been officially confirmed by investigators. That doesn't mean these details aren't true, but it does mean we need to be careful about how much weight we give them when forming opinions about what actually happened.
What I find most significant is the timeline of behavior. The lack of public concern about Celeste's disappearance, the continued focus on career building while she was missing, the initial decision to keep performing after remains were found in his car. These behavioral patterns don't prove guilt, but they do raise questions about awareness and priorities. If David genuinely had no knowledge of what happened to Celeste, you would expect to see some evidence of concern about her well-being during the months she was missing. Some attempt to help locate her, some communication with her family, some public appeal for information. The absence of that kind of behavior, combined with all the other circumstantial evidence, has led many people to draw their own conclusions about this case. There are several things we should be watching for. First, the medical examiner's determination of cause and manner of what happened to Celeste. That information will be crucial for understanding what charges, if any, might be appropriate. Second, the analysis of digital evidence. David's computer and phone likely contain months or years of communications that could provide crucial context about his relationship with Celeste and his knowledge of her disappearance. Third, the Tesla data. As I mentioned earlier, these vehicles collect enormous amounts of information about where they go, when they're accessed, and who uses them. That data could provide a detailed timeline of what happened to Celeste and when. The broader implications of this case extend far beyond one missing person investigation. This situation has forced uncomfortable conversations about online safety, community responsibility, age-appropriate relationships, and the music industry's handling of controversial artists. Parents are looking at their children's online activities differently. Gaming communities are examining their moderation policies. Music platforms are considering their responsibilities when concerns are raised about artists. These conversations are necessary even if they're difficult. Celeste's story has the potential to prevent similar situations from happening to other young people, but only if we're willing to have honest discussions about the systemic issues that may have contributed to her disappearance. As we wrap up our discussion of this case, I want to acknowledge how complex and emotionally challenging these situations are for everyone involved. There's a family grieving the loss of their daughter. There's another family watching their son's life and career potentially crumble. There's a community processing trauma and trying to make sense of a senseless situation. The truth is, we may never know exactly what happened between David and Celeste or how she ended up in that Tesla. But what we do know is that a young life was lost, families have been destroyed, and communities have been forced to confront some uncomfortable realities about how we protect our most vulnerable members. This case reminds us that behind every headline, every social media post, every comment section discussion, there are real people dealing with unimaginable pain. Whatever conclusions we draw about guilt or innocence, we should never lose sight of the human cost of these situations. The investigation into Celeste Rivas' disappearance and passing continues. David remains cooperative with authorities while living under the shadow of public suspicion. And somewhere in California, a family continues to mourn the loss of their daughter while seeking answers about what happened to her. Justice for Celeste means getting to the truth, whatever that truth might be. It means holding the responsible parties accountable through the proper legal channels. And it means using her story to protect other young people from finding themselves in similar situations. That's our discussion of the David and Celeste case here on Deadly Affairs. Let me know in the comments what aspects of this situation concern you most and what questions you still have about the investigation. Remember to be respectful in your discussions and to distinguish between what's been verified and what remains speculation. Keep having these important conversations with your families and communities. Stay engaged with cases like this because public attention often helps ensure that justice is served and that lessons are learned. Until next time, take care of each other.